People with a high-frequency hearing loss often miss out on high-frequency sounds such as s or th. Missing these sounds makes it hard to follow a conversation. Oticon's frequency-lowering feature, Speech Rescue LX, increases speech understanding by rescuing high-frequency speech cues that would otherwise be lost. With Speech Rescue LX and the ultra-fast Velox platform, Oticon's approach to frequency lowering gives the brain what it needs to make sense of sound. The human ear has the unique ability to transform sound waves into electrical impulses that the brain can interpret and make sense of. In the inner ear, the cochlea consists of a snail shell structure with fluid inside it. Small hair cells are put into motion whenever the fluid in the snail is impacted by sound signals. The hair cells are connected to the hearing nerve. When the hair cells move, the hearing nerve sends electrical impulses to the brain. The brain then interprets these signals to hear the sound. The treble or high-pitched tones mainly affect the hair cells in the lower part of the cochlea, close to where the sounds enter. The bass or low-pitched tones mainly affect the hair cells at the end or apex of the cochlea. Let's imagine that it is possible to roll out the cochlea in a straight line. Then it would look a little like this. The area to the right is where the sound enters. It is where the treble sounds or high-frequency sounds are stimulated. The input from the cochlea is converted into electrical impulses that travel through the hearing nerve to the hearing center in the brain, also known as the auditory cortex. It is located on the upper surface of the temporal lobe. It is here that the actual making sense of sound occurs. The layout of both the cochlea and the auditory cortex is tonotopic. This means that the mapping of the sounds is laid out systematically. The high frequencies primarily stimulate the nerve cells towards the back, while the nerve cells towards the front are stimulated by lower frequencies. Since the energy from the sound is highest at the bottom of the cochlea, where the sound enters, the sensory cells in the area are the ones most exposed to destructive forces of incoming sound. So it is often here, in the high-frequency area, that the hearing loss begins, and also where it often becomes most severe. When the sensory cells become damaged, they send incomplete signals, if any signal at all, to the part of the brain that normally hears these sounds. The brain receives an incomplete stream of information to work with and tries to fill in the blanks to make some sense of the input. The more blanks, the harder it is to understand. Speech is dominated by mid-frequency energy, but some important sounds are high frequency. Let's analyze this sentence. Strawberry jam is sweet, and separate the high-frequency sounds from the low and mid-frequency sounds. Missing out on high-frequency sounds makes the remaining sentence very difficult to understand. What this image also reveals is that there is a natural dynamic in speech signals. When high frequencies are present, low frequencies are more or less absent, and vice versa. So when the brain hears strawberry jam is sweet, the auditory cortex is stimulated in different places according to the frequency content of the speech. For people with a high-frequency hearing loss, it is usually difficult to make high-frequency sound audible with normal amplification. Frequency lowering is the answer to this problem. Very simply put, frequency lowering enables the hearing instruments to take high-frequency sounds and lower them into an area with more sensitivity. This exercise must be done with great care to avoid any artifacts or distortion of the signal. Therefore, Oticon has developed Speech Rescue LX, a frequency-lowering technology that minimizes the intrusiveness as much as possible. Speech Rescue LX identifies the high-frequency speech sounds. Then the signal is copied and stacked in the new position. At the same time, the high-frequency sound is kept in its original place. Speech Rescue LX takes advantage of the naturally occurring dynamics of speech. High-frequency sounds usually occur when there is no mid-frequency sound present. With the copy and keep approach, Speech Rescue LX is designed to preserve the original signal and give access to high-frequency sounds, even if only fragments of the high-frequency hearing are intact. At the same time, the copied sounds are fit into the signal where there's room, without compromising the original signal in the mid-frequencies. Speech Rescue LX uses a frequency-lowering technology called frequency composition. There are two other general approaches in hearing aids. Frequency transposition cuts out a segment of the high frequency and reproduces it at a lower frequency. The high frequency is no longer present in the signal. Frequency compression squeezes all the sound together into the audible area. This keeps the original signal. However, there is reduced spectral detail and a higher risk of distortion. Instead of compressing or removing sounds, Oticon's frequency-lowering system, Speech Rescue LX, precisely positions the high-frequency energy in the available space with minimized disturbance to the mid-frequencies. With high-frequency hearing losses, frequency lowering is often the best solution to preserve high-frequency input. However, due to the limited residual hearing, activation of this feature may actually be counterproductive for the client if it is set too aggressively. So to prevent this, Speech Rescue has 10 configurations covering a broad range of hearing losses. Speech Rescue follows the brain hearing sound processing strategy that keeps the signal as intact as possible. It identifies the inaudible high-frequency sounds, copies them, and brings them to their destination. The configuration and weighting of the source and destination areas can be set according to the hearing loss. With such detailed settings, you can make sure that the brain gets the important speech cues, while at the same time keeping the original structure of the input. Speech Rescue LX goes hand in hand together with Oticon's adaptive compression system, SpeechGuard LX. This unique combination is the most effective in preserving speech. A client with a high-frequency hearing loss typically has little chance of hearing high-frequency speech sounds, like an S. First, high-frequency components of the incoming sounds are copied to lower frequencies through Speech Rescue LX. The high-frequency sounds are then amplified with SpeechGuard LX. This compression system guards the dynamic contrast of the entire signal and lets the rescued speech sounds appear clear. This way, Oticon can deliver the best preserved speech cues for the brain to make sense of sound. You find Speech Rescue LX as a tool in Genie 2. Speech Rescue LX is off by default, but the prescribed settings can be seen even if it is not activated. This can help you make decisions about Speech Rescue LX before it is activated with a click. You can configure the combination of source and destination frequencies within a 10-step range from 2.4 kHz to 5.5 kHz. Adjust the strength of the high-frequency source sounds when mixed with the low-frequency destination sounds. 7 levels are available. The higher the level, the more weight is given to the high-frequency sound before lowering. You can also turn off the high-frequency bands above the destination area altogether. The high-frequency bands are on by default. Speech Rescue LX is available in the Mini-Right T, and BTE Plus Power hearing aids. This, of course, includes Open 1, 2, and 3. Speech Rescue LX gives the client the audibility to hear more speech sounds and understand more speech. Thank you for your time.